Hey, good morning. It's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right. It's me, Uncle Lou, live for you on LouTube today, and thanks for watching. We're getting back to ACC week today. Sorry I didn't post a video yesterday. I had the live show. I just ran out of time and didn't have time to post a video yesterday, so here's one today. I'm trying to do two today. So back to ACC week. Before we get started, congratulations again, Mark Dudley. Your jersey came in, your Michigan jersey, sir. Mark Dudley was the proud winner of a free college football jersey of his choice. If you're not watching the Uncle Lou live shows, you really need to be watching them. We give all kinds of stuff away on there. So anyway, congratulations to you, Mark, and let's get going with today's video. All right, so here we go. We're going to rank the ACC coaches. What are there? 14 to 1. Doing backwards. Start with the worst. Go to the best. This is Uncle Lou's opinion. Feel free to let me know in the comment section down below where I'm wrong. Which one of these coaches is too high on the list? Which ones are too low? Did I get any of them right? Let me know in the comment section down below. If there's any other video ideas that you want me to do for ACC week this week, you can let me know that down there too. Please subscribe to the Uncle Lou channel if you're not subscribed already. I post college football videos almost every single day of the year. Subscribe, thumbs up this video if you enjoy it, and share it with your friends. But let's get started here. The ranking the ACC football coaches for 2018. All right, some people are going to disagree where I'm starting here, but at number 14, I'm putting Paul Johnson. I'm sorry, it's 2018. You're running an offense that died off 30 years ago. No elite high school kids want to play for this offense. The last 3 years, you've won 3 games, then 9 games, then 5 games. I mean, really what it is coaches that play you year in and year out figure out how to stop that offense relatively quickly. New coaches come into the ACC, you're able to get a few wins here and there. But it's just absolutely ridiculous that there's a coach in college football at a Power 5 program that is still trying to run this style of offense. Very few high schools even run this offense anymore. And to make matters even worse, Georgia is absolutely loaded right now and has been for the last decade or so with elite high school talent, but not option talent, real football talent. And Georgia Tech doesn't even have an opportunity to try to recruit any of those kids because those kids just don't want to play in that style of offense. It's not a style and offense that leads anybody to the NFL. It's not exciting. It's not new. And the kids aren't even playing it in high school. So like I said, 3, 9, and 5 is your win total over the last 3 years. Georgia Tech fans, at least half of them seem to love this guy because he's able to beat Georgia once every 3 or 4 years. I'll be honest with you, Uncle Lou is perfectly okay losing to Georgia Tech once every 3 or 4 years. You know, normally when Georgia loses to Georgia Tech, it's a recruiting problem, right? Because a win over an in-state rival is something that you can use on the recruiting trail with high school athletes to say, hey, come to Georgia Tech. We beat Georgia. We're getting ready to go on a roll, blah, blah, blah. Well, Georgia Tech, even in the once every 4 or 5 years that Georgia Tech happens to get lucky and beats Georgia, they can't even use it in a recruit's living room as a recruiting tactic because they're not even in the same living rooms that the Georgia coaches are in. None of the elite talent in Georgia even considers Georgia Tech because of the style of offense that they run. I mean, to be honest, Paul Johnson could go 10-2 next year. I would leave him last on this list. You're never going to accomplish anything meaningful in 2018 or beyond running this outdated style of offense. Dead last on my list, Paul Johnson. All right, next up on the Uncle Lou list, ranking the ACC coaches at number 13, Steve Addazio. Who the hell is this guy? No one even knows. You know who this guy reminds me of? Bret Bielema from the SEC. Very, very similar in terms of what they've done there. This guy floats around 500, right? Very rarely or every once in a while he'll have a really, really terrible year. Every once in a while he'll win 7 or 8 games. But most times this guy's winning 5, 6 games a year. I think he's like 30. Well, I wrote it down. He's like... what is he? He's 31-33 overall, 14-26 in the ACC. The guy's been there 7 years, doesn't have a winning record. 7 years, and this is what you're producing here. I don't get it. I mean, I know, I guess Boston College doesn't have a whole lot of expectations. That's the only reason I can think of that they would be hanging on to this guy like that. But he does remind me of Brett Bielema in that way, floating right around that 500 overall mark. Never anything spectacular. Rarely, no 1 or 2 win seasons or whatever. Just barely enough to get by. Forgettable, really. And that was what I used to say about Arkansas under Brett Bielema. You just forget about them, right? They're not so bad that you're laughing at them. They're not so good that you're talking about them. They're just in that gray, like no man's land, middle ground area here. 13 on the list, Steve Adazio, Boston College. Who cares? Number 12, Syracuse Orangeman. What is it? Is this guy's name Dino Babers, whatever his name is? I'm going to call him Dino Babers. That's what it looks like to me. 4-8 2 years in a row, but you beat Clemson in 2017 and you beat Virginia Tech in 2016. I guess that's the only reason this guy still has a job, right? Everyone know we made fun of the Taters the whole second half of last year because they lost to a fruit. There's a reason why people laughed at that loss with Clemson. There's a reason why that was one of the worst losses in all of college football last year for Clemson, and it was because it was against Dino Babers. This guy's not a good coach. 4-8 2 years in a row. I don't know what they're doing. He could be out of there after this year. Usually 3 or 4 years is when you see somebody make a change. Rarely after 1 or 2. 4-8 the last 2 years. What a joke. Number 12, Dino Babers or Babers. The fruit. All right, coming in at number 11 now, and I had to really think about this one. I think I had this one in a few different spots as I was going along making this list before I finally settled on number 11. Larry Fedora, head coach, North Carolina. This guy has been on the decline lately. What was it? 3 years ago, I guess they were 11-3, made it to the ACC title game, and honestly, they beat Clemson that year. Terrible call by the referee. I'm not going to get into all that with the onside kick thing. It was just a horrible call. But then I think they won 8 games the next year, and what, they win 3 games last year? Is that really right? Yeah, so from 11 to 8 to 3. I mean, that's just terrible. I mean, they're so bad. We make fun of Tennessee under Butch Jones for having those Special Olympics activities and three-legged race and a sack hop and all this crap that they did at their spring game. At least they tried to have one. North Carolina's so bad, Larry Fedora just said, forget it. We're not even having a spring game this year. Just scratch that. Just forget it. Yeah, so headed in the wrong direction. At North Carolina, and doing it at a real bad time too, with a team like NC State, who's been sort of on the rise. So yeah, he comes in next on the list. Larry Fedora, head coach, the North Carolina Tar Heels. All right, number 10. Get ready to type. Willie Taggart. Not enough information on this guy. I'm sorry. 1 year at Oregon, not enough to show me anything. Yeah, he improved. He took Oregon from 4 wins. He was only at Oregon 1 year. So the year before he got to Oregon, Oregon won 4 games. The year where he was there, they won 7 games. If that blows you away, then God bless you. Now, before that, he was at South Florida, and he did improve South Florida quite a bit. I think he went from 2 wins to 4 wins to 8 wins to 10 wins, or what was it? I wrote that down too, didn't I? 2, 4, 8, 10. So in 4 years, 2 wins, 4 wins, 8 wins, and then 10 years left for Oregon. 1 year, and Harris, a 4-win team, wins 7 games, and now they hire him down at Florida State. I get it. The guy's from Florida. Florida's loaded with high school talent. You bring him in, hoping to gain some sort of recruiting advantage. My problem is I don't think you should hire. To me, the recruiting aspect of Willie Taggart at Florida State is the best thing about him. And I don't think you should hire. I don't think recruiting. I don't think that's enough reason to hire him, is what I'm trying to say. There are plenty of talented college football coaches with roots in the Florida area. I don't understand going out and reaching, which is really what they did here. This is a reach hire for Florida State, without question. I don't understand going out and making a reach hire simply because of his recruiting prowess or whatever in Florida, when there are literally dozens of guys that can recruit the state of Florida. And Florida State recruits itself in a lot of ways. I mean, they have a national title not that long ago. You lose Jimbo Fisher. I get it. There's some turmoil there. You had a down year last year. I get that. But, let's be real. Florida State is currently loaded with talent. There's no team in the SEC that can come close from the top of the roster to the bottom of the roster in terms of overall talent to Clemson than Florida State. Clemson is ahead, but Florida State is a clear number 2 talent-wise in the SEC. So I don't understand to me, it seemed like a knee-jerk reaction. Oh my God, we only won 7 games last year. We better go get a recruiter. I mean, I don't know if this is breaking news to Criminal fans or not, but Jimbo Fisher was recruiting pretty well at Florida State. Okay, so it's not like recruiting wasn't your issue. You know, recruiting the offensive line, maybe you had a lot of misses there. That can happen. I don't know. Your offensive line is horrible. I mean, god awful. I don't understand what you're doing there. You blame that skinny Blackman all you want and say he's not a good quarterback. I don't care who you put quarterback at Florida State last year. They weren't going to be very good behind that offensive line running for their life 90% of the time. But so I don't know. So my point with Willie Taggart is next year when I do this video, he could be not one, but he could be 2, 3, 4 on the list, or he could be 12 or 13. There's just not enough information about him. It's hard for me to. I like what he did at South Florida, but I'm sorry. There's a difference between non-Power 5 and Power 5. There just is, okay? And yes, he improved Oregon, but what was the worst conference in football last year?
The Pac-12.
Thank you, Pac-12. They won 1 bowl game. They shut out of the college football playoff. I mean, so how impressive is it really that he took Oregon from 4 to 7 wins? Same Oregon that was winning 10, 11, 12 games a year for a decade under Chip Kelly. I'm not sure, so we'll find out this year. All right, number 9, Pat Narduzzi, Pittsburgh. A down year this last year, 5-7, 8-5 the 2 years before that. Big wins over Penn State and Clemson. This is another like Arkansas type program. Listen, it's real easy to name, like, okay, if I ask you, name me the worst teams in the Pac-12, you can do it, no problem. Name me the worst teams in the SEC, you can do it. Name me the best teams in the Big 12, you can do it. If I ask you, name me the 3 most mediocre teams in the ACC, that's hard to do off the top of your head. You just forget about these teams. We talked about Boston College. Here's another one here. Pitt is one of these teams that you almost forget about them until your team is playing them, or until you're doing some kind of list like this and you come across, oh, that's right, Pittsburgh has a team, and you end up having to write down Pittsburgh. Like them, I forgot they even had a freaking team. What the Panthers? Is that what they are? The Pitt Panthers. Had a pretty good running back a few years ago. Of course, he's gone now. So I don't know. We'll see. A couple 8-win seasons. Down year last year for Narduzzi. We'll see if he can turn it around and get back up to the 8-win mark. I mean, 8 wins not terrible, right? But when you're 2 years of that and then 5 wins, so this is an important year. We'll see what he can do. I don't know, but it's just one of those teams you just tend to forget about. Number 8 is Bobby Petrino. Now, some people might think he should be higher on this list. I don't know. If somebody else wants to make their own list and put him dead last, I'm okay with that too, because he's just a terrible human being, right? Without question, the worst human being of anybody on this list here. And this, to me, I put him dead in the middle, and here's why. I mean, I'll talk about some other stuff too, but this pretty much boils down Bobby Petrino right here. Lamar Jackson started for 2 years. You were 17-9. 17-9. That's the best player Louisville's ever had. Bobby Petrino is probably the best coach you've ever had, and you went 17-9 in 2 years. So that was your ceiling. I mean, that was your. So in other words, Louisville's not going 12-0. They're not going 0-12. You're not winning your division. You're not winning the ACC. You had Lamar Jackson, the most exciting player in college football, for 2 years in a row, with the best coach you've ever had, of Bobby Petrino, and the best you could do over a 2-year period under those circumstances was 17-9. That should tell you everything you need to know. But in case you need to know more, he's only finished better than 5-3 at Louisville one time. That, of course, was with Lamar Jackson when he went 7-1, and I'm talking about in the ACC. So a middle-of-the-road team here is what Louisville has been under Bobby Petrino, only finishing better than 5-3 one time since he's been there, and that was Lamar Jackson's Heisman year of 2016. 1 bowl win in 4 years. I mean, come on, if you're a Louisville fan, God bless you. You had Lamar Jackson, hashtag you tried, but it's over. All right, 5, 6, and 7, and 8. 5, 6, all 4 of these are interchangeable. So I'll probably get some comments saying 5, 6, 7, and 8 were wrong. It should have been here, should have been there. And I get that. These are all pretty similar guys. But for number 7, I have Bronco Mendenhall, Virginia. Of course, he came from BYU, has some success out there with them, comes east to Virginia. What's he done since he got there? Well, he went 2-10 his first year, which is terrible, but he inherited an absolute dumpster fire. 6-7 last year, including making their first bowl game since 2011. I'm a fan of Bronco Mendenhall. I think he's a good football coach. I think you're limited at Virginia as far as how high you're going to be able to go. I don't think the ceiling is 6-7. I think you can get 8-9 wins at Virginia, and they would worship the grounds you walked on if you were able to do that. Virginia's not turning into some sort of ACC powerhouse. I don't care how good of a coach Bronco Mendenhall turns out to be. But you inherit absolute trash. You win 2 games installing a new system. Second year there, you triple that to 6 wins. If this year he comes out and wins 8 or 9 games, then he probably moves higher up this list. But for now, there he is, Virginia Cavaliers, Bronco Mendenhall. All right, number 6 is head coach NC State Wolfpack, Dave Duren. Is that his name? Yeah, Dave, how you doing? How you momming there? Dave Duren. This guy was about to get fired a couple years ago, wasn't he? They had a good season last year, going, I think it was 9-4. But they were loaded on defense, especially with NFL talent led by Bradley Chubb. A lot of those people are gone now. I don't expect NC State to win 9 games again this year. If they can get back to the 8 or 9 win mark this year, then Dave Duren is definitely a top 5 coach in the ACC. But I don't know if I see that. Happening now, they've lost to Clemson 3 years in a row, but it's been very close, competitive games. So it's like a close but no cigar type situation for NC State. Last year was the best team they've had in a long time. They got all the way up. They may have even gotten into the top 10. I know they were top 15 because they were 5-0, 6-0, 7-0. Then I think they took that loss to Notre Dame, was it? And then Clemson in back-to-back weeks, if I remember correctly. And then that sort of started their downfall there towards the end of the season. But not a terrible team, especially by NC State standards. A really good year at 9-4. Dave Duren, there he is, NC State Wolfpack. All right, number 5 on the list, Dave. Is it Dave? Dave Clausen, not Dawson. Dave Clausen. I'll have to admit, this is the one that surprised me the most when I was looking these coaches up. And I have probably made some offhanded comments over the last couple of months about Wake Forest that it turns out were totally incorrect and wrong. Wake Forest is a team on the rise. At least lately, they have been. I mean, if you look at what Dave Clausen has done there in the last 4 years, he's improved. 3 wins his first year, 3 wins his second year, 7 wins the year after that, 8 wins last year. So this is a guy that's trending in the right direction here. And where was he at before that? Fordham and Richmond, who cares? Bowling Green turned all 3 of those teams around too. All 3 of those teams were down here when he got there, and he elevated them up. And he's doing the same thing now at Wake Forest. 3 wins, 7 wins, 8 wins. If he has another good year this year at Wake Forest, and by good year I mean by what he's done now, the expectations are going to be at least 8 wins. If he wins 8 or more games this coming year at Wake Forest, it could be his last year in Wake Forest. Not because he gets fired, but because somebody reaches in and grabs it. A better program is going to be looking for this guy. I think if he has one more good year at Wake Forest, he could be one of the hot names to fill coaching vacancies towards the end of this coming college football season. I don't think this guy's going to be in Wake Forest for long, Dave Clausen, but here he is on the list this year, number 5 coach in the ACC, Dave Clausen, Boston College. Nope. Wake Forest. All right, number 4 on the list, Duke head coach David Cutcliffe. It's possible this is the best coach in the ACC. I'm going to go ahead and say it. Maybe not better than Dabo Swinney, but it's possible David Cutcliffe is the best coach in the ACC. I've done a lot of comparisons during this video of coaches and programs in the ACC to other coaches and programs elsewhere. This guy is sort of like James Franklin was at Penn State. I mean at Vanderbilt before he went to Penn State. The difference, obviously, James Franklin was a young and up-and-coming coach. Dave Cutcliffe has been around forever. But Duke, one of the hardest places in the Power 5 to consistently win in the sport of football. And what has he done there? Won a bowl game last year. He's been to 5 bowl games in 6 years. At Duke. At Duke. That means in 5 out of 6 years, he's won at least 6 games or more. At Duke. Listen, Florida Gators have had 2 4-win seasons in the last 5 years. Duke has had none. So, he's doing something right at Duke. Yeah, I know it's Duke. They're never going 10-2 or 11-1 or 12-0 or winning any division titles or ACC titles, but it's friggin' Duke. All right, I'm sorry about that. That's probably the most excited anybody's ever gotten about Duke football. So I'm going to try to calm down some. All right, that brings us to number 3 on the Uncle Lou list, ranking the ACC coaches. Virginia Tech head coach Justin Fuente. Now, I have to admit that some truth in advertising here. I've been high on this guy for several years, going back to when he was at Memphis. I think what he did there was borderline unbelievable, and I was really high on this guy. When Georgia was getting ready to fire Mark Richt, there was 3 names really that I had circled. Now, obviously, Mark Richt was on the top of the list, but if something would have went wrong there was 2 other guys I was looking at. One of them was Tom Herman. The other one was Justin Fuente. So I think he's a hell of a coach, and so that may be biasing my opinion here just a little bit. But he's been at Virginia Tech now for a few years. He's 19-8. So not, not elite, but pretty good. What is that? 4 losses a year. He almost beat Clemson, of course, in the 2016 ACC title game. And I'm a believer in Justin Fuente and Virginia Tech. If there's a team or a coach in the ACC right now that I think has the potential to challenge Clemson and Dabo Swinney for the next 5 to 10 years in the ACC, I think it's Justin Fuentes and Virginia Tech. I know Mark Richt is a good coach at Miami. I know Florida State's always going to have a lot of talent. You're going to have a few other teams that may pop up and have a really good year every 3 or 4 years or so. But if there's going to be a team that can consistently challenge Clemson over the next 4, 5, 6, 7 years into the future, I'm a believer in Justin Fuentes and that Virginia Tech is the team that potentially can do that. So number 3 on the Uncle Lou list, Virginia Tech head coach Justin Fuentes. All right, number 2 on the list, Mark Richt. And a lot of you are going to say, well, Lou, you hate Mark Richt. That's sort of a misconception, really. I've sort of gotten the reputation of hating Mark Richt because I'm constantly having to defend the fact that Georgia fired him, right? Not so much anymore since Kirby Smart led Georgia to the national title game last year in a playoff win in the Rose Bowl and won the SEC. But prior to that, I was constantly getting asked or told that Georgia made a huge mistake, Lou. Never should have got rid of Mark Richt, Lou. You're going to regret hiring Kirby Smart, Lou. And it put me, because I wanted Mark Richt fired and I was so loud about it, I tended to be a place where a lot of people would come to tell me that Georgia was stupid and should have kept Mark Richt. So I felt like it was putting me in a place where I constantly had to defend the decision that Georgia made to fire Mark Richt. And the way you defend the decision to fire somebody is by pointing out all the reasons that he got fired. So I've had to spend a lot of time over the last couple of years on video and in other places listing and naming all the different reasons and things that Mark Richt did at the University of Georgia that led to him getting fired. But with all that being said, he was a good coach in the SEC. I mean, he was there for 15 years and averaged 9.7 wins a season during a time period when the SEC was far and away the best conference in all of college football, and it wasn't even close. He won a couple of SEC titles. He won a couple of big bowl games for Georgia, some Sugar Bowls, close to national championship 2 or 3 times. Had he capitalized on even one of those, he'd probably still be at the University of Georgia, but yeah, that's neither here nor there. But he's in the ACC now. His first year at Miami, he takes them to a bowl game, gets their first bowl win in 10 years. Of course, last year wins the Coastal Division for the first time in history for Miami, which is kind of hard to believe. People think, well, Miami used to be real good, right? Well, yeah. But in the 90s and the early 2000s, when Miami was really, really good, they weren't in the ACC. They were in the Big East. And I think they might have even been independent for a while before that. But anyway, since they've been in the ACC, they had never even won the Coastal up until last year. So they win the Coastal. Of course, they got steamrolled by Clemson in the ACC title game. And if you're a Miami fan, that's something you might as well just go ahead and get used to. But he's going to give you 9-10 wins a year. He's going to make several ACC title games without question. He may even win an ACC title every 6, 7, or 8 years if you have the patience to leave him there that long. He's in the weaker of the 2 divisions in the ACC, in my opinion. His only real competition, I think, is Virginia Tech. On the other side, you got Clemson and Florida State, which, you know, in a general year, Clemson and Florida State are going to be better than Miami and Virginia Tech if you take those two teams as a whole and compare them to the other two teams as a whole. So I think he's on the weaker side. That's going to benefit him. We'll see what happens with Virginia Tech and Justin Fuentes. We just talked about that. But Mark Richt is a good coach, and I think deserves the ranking of number 2 on this list, Uncle Lou's top ACC coaches. Never any doubt here, but obviously Dabo Swinney, number 1 on the list. 3 straight college football playoff appearances, a national title 2 years ago, 3 straight ACC titles, recruiting at a monster level year in and year out. What sets Dabo Swinney and Clemson apart right now from a lot of other teams is their ability to do it for an extended period of time. They're not Auburn, who won a national title in 2010 and then went 3-9 and fired a coach. You know, you look at even a school like Washington, makes the playoffs 1 year, can't get back in. Georgia made it last year. We'll see if they're able to get back in. Michigan State made it once, can't get back in. To make the college football playoff 3 times in a row is not easy. It's a hell of an accomplishment. To argue that Dabo Swinney isn't the number 1 coach in the ACC would just be ludicrous. By most people's account, he's the 2nd best coach in college football right now. I know some people have Urban Meyer ahead of Dabo Swinney. I wouldn't. If I was going to make a list outright of all the coaches in college football, I would have Dabo Swinney ahead of Urban Meyer for sure. Clemson's not going anywhere anytime soon. As long as Dabo Swinney is there, they're going to be the favorite to win the ACC. Clemson is really the Alabama of the ACC right now. Everyone is chasing them. Is Clemson going to win the ACC every single year that Dabo Swinney's there? No, but they're going to win it more times than they don't. Same thing you've seen happen at Alabama with Nick Saban over the last 10 years. Like I mentioned, their recruiting, they're not going anywhere. They just signed the number 1 high school player in America, quarterback Trevor Lawrence, for the 2018 class. So they're set at quarterback for at least the next 3 years. They're an NFL defense. They've got playmakers on the outside. They always have good, reliable running backs. Dabo Swinney, far and away, not even close, the best coach in the ACC. All right, well, that's it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, tell me where I'm wrong down there. Subscribe if you're not. Sorry this video was so long, but it's 14 coaches. So hard to do a video where you talk about 14 different coaches without it getting a little bit long. If you made it this far, you're a scholar and a gentleman. Subscribe if you're not. Thumbs up the video. Share it so other people can see it. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Tune in tonight, live stream, 10 o'clock Eastern on YouTube. We do it every Tuesday and Thursday night, and talk some college football with me. Thanks for watching, and have a great morning.